This is the way.
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 Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News Streaming Night, where we take a streaming series and we go episode by episode and give our thoughts on what happened in that episode. I am your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drac. I hope everybody's having an awesome day or night when you're listening to this. And joining me, obviously, is my lovely wife, Andrea. Andrea, how are you doing?
I'm fine.
Are you feeling particularly sinful today?
Can't say that I am.
Well, then you're obviously not the Mandalorian, because we're here to talk about Season 1, Episode 3 of The Mandalorian, The Sin. I love the title of this episode. It is so great because it is The Sin that basically kind of kicks the series off. So, without further ado, let's get into the plots, basically a summary of the plot of this episode and just a brief description of what happens in it, as we usually do in these podcasts. If you have not seen the series, go watch it. We'll wait. Our past selves will anyway. So we have Chapter 3, The Sin. The battered Mandalorian returns to his client for his reward.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, this is the best summary that is available on this one, because if you want to, I believe this is actually from Disney Plus, but the storyline basically is Mando comes back. He turns in Baby Yoda to the Imperial client that, by the way, I forgot to mention, and some people got mad at me, that Werner Herzog plays. And I believe, I personally haven't seen Werner Herzog since Highlander, like the first Highlander movie. So there you go. So he returns to his client, and when returning Baby Yoda to the Imperial client, we start to notice that Mando has gained a little bit of an attachment to the little guy. Or girl. We're not sure. And so a lot of people tend to question in this episode, like, aren't you not supposed to be, like, you're supposed to be the job first, not worrying about what happens to the cargo. And this becomes kind of a conflict throughout the episode, enough so that he gets questioned by everybody because he has the audacity to ask what's going to happen to the kid after I drop it off. Now, ultimately, his reward is huge. It's enough Beskar to basically give him armor. Give him snazzy new armor. And so we actually get to see him bring this Beskar in and get questioned by the other Mandalorians that are in this coven on his reward. And ultimately, he does get the reward of having a full suit of armor given to him, which is how we all know him, right? He's not broken down right now. He goes back to Greef Karga to go get a new job because he's earned so much trust and respect from Greef Karga over doing the impossible job that he basically picks, he gets to pick whatever job he wants. Oh yeah, and by the way, he also finds out what happened with all the tracking fobs that were looking for him. They were all issued by the guild too, because that's how high priority a target Baby Yoda was.
Mm-hmm.
So his own guild members were hunting him down, and it was Greef Karga that gave him those. And because he still got the job done, now they're all pissed at him, right? Well, during this time, that ever problematic conscience of the Mandalorian keeps haunting him about what is going on with Baby Yoda. Like, what have I left him to endure? Kind of thing. And actually, while they're making the suit of armor, we get to see even more flashbacks of presumably his life before he became the Mandalorian, where it looks like he might have been orphaned at one point. So he has a lot in common with Baby Yoda. Well, ultimately, this all leads into the Sin itself, where he goes into the Imperial building, kills off all the stormtroopers, resecures Baby Yoda, and gets ready to head off world, but then has to deal with the guild in order to get off world. And that's where we'll leave it. So, like, basically a lot of this is kind of setting up how the rest of the series will be, which is that the Mandalorian is going off to some random world with Baby Yoda as his new companion. So, what did this episode, in your opinion, Andrea, do right? Like, what were its good moments?
I love that he's like, he wonders about the kid, and he just doesn't want to leave it.
So you like the crisis of conscience.
Mm-hmm.
I find that interesting because there actually were a lot of people that were hoping that this was going to be kind of a Boba Fett character and he wouldn't care about stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it too because it's subtlety in character development that works really, really well. And this was actually where it's done well. It can be done badly, but in this case, I think it was done well because they actually try to showcase that as a fellow orphan, he understands how hard life can be, and therefore, if he can save somebody from it, he will, kind of thing. So I actually do like it. What else do you think? What other good moments are in this? I like the confrontation in the Coven, where he gains this huge reward, and even some of the other Mandalorians kind of question whether or not he is truly deserving of that kind of a reward, as if to say, like, maybe he's not the eldest of the pack, so to speak. Maybe he's a young pup, and he's aspiring to things way above his station.
I guess that's true.
In particular, the one Mandalorian, I'm gonna call him Big Boy because he's a much bulkier dude. Where he kind of not only does he criticize the spoils that the Mandalorian got because they're Imperial spoils, but also questioning whether or not he deserves that. And it goes both ways because remember, the Smith actually says, like, what did you have to what did you have to kill in order to procure your target, referring to the Mudhorn, and says, like, we'll give you a sigil of the Mudhorn as your signet. And even he kind of goes there and says, no, I can't take that. That kill was not clean. And this is kind of leaning back to why the last episode was, even though kind of pointless, ultimately necessary. Because, Mandalorians run off of a heavy honor complex. And because Baby Yoda interfered in the battle with the Mudhorn, it wasn't a clean kill.
It wasn't killed directly only him.
Yeah, it wasn't an honorable kill. It wasn't clean.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I mean by clean. It wasn't honorable. Mm-hmm. So at that point, he even says, like, I gained assistance. And who assisted you? Someone who I think might be an enemy.
Mm.
Which is basically kind of alluding to the concept that maybe he's aware of the Mandalorian's past with the Jedi. And so at that point, maybe he doesn't know how he feels about Baby Yoda.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the same time, like, he feels like he should hate Baby Yoda because, Mandalorians hate Jedi. But he also has never, as we obviously can tell, because he doesn't recognize the Force when he sees it. So he doesn't know how he feels about it. So I actually do like that scene. And ultimately, one of the better moments of this episode that we have to mention is the meme that basically was born from this episode. This is the way.
Yep.
So I like that. I will say another good moment in this is, so recently for Geek News Movie Night, I had to watch the movie John Wick. And ultimately that got me watching all of the later movies about this secret world of assassins and things like that. And so now that I've done that, I gained a lot more appreciation for this scene where the Mandalorian has raided the Imperial complex, has gained Baby Yoda back, and then all of a sudden you see Greef Karga, Carl Weathers, getting a call. And then immediately all the tracking fobs in the bar start going off again. And immediately, like, to you as a viewer, that's like, oh, the shit has hit the fan. He doesn't have to deal, like, he just barely dealt with the dirty stormtroopers. Now he's going to have to deal with all the unsavories in the guild to be able to get off this planet. I like how that happened because ultimately you see all those fobs, right? And then immediately they start showing the Mandalorian going through the side streets and he's being watched. And he's being watched because they have those tracking fobs too.
It makes you wonder why on earth would they all of a sudden decide to go after him if he went to go.
I'm pretty sure it's because the client put out a hit like that night and probably even offered more than what Mando got.
That's true. It'd just be like, well, It's just like, okay, so...
Because remember, the client wanted this target alive.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're guessing, because of how the Mandalorian saves Baby Yoda, it looks like they were keeping him alive for, like, research purposes. So, obviously, he needs the target alive. But he doesn't care that the person who just raided his complex dies. So, other scenes that are good.
Those are all...
How did you feel about the scene where he goes back to Grief Karga and basically gets given his next job? And this is where the conscience thing plays in really hard, right? Because remember, Grief was basically saying, why don't you go and get some spice for your trip? You'll forget about that kid long before you get to your next target. As if kind of urging him back into his old life.
Boy, he sure doesn't, like, want...
What, did you forget that happened?
No, I remember it. It's just like, really?
Mm-hmm. Well, but it's actually a good it's a good symbolizing of the underworld.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they have to be morally ambiguous because what they're going to have to do is very unsavory. So at that point, just go get some drugs. You'll forget about your problems the second you're, like, way before you even get to your next client or to your next target. And so I actually like that. Like, this is the underworld's answer to it, but it's also kind of reaffirming that this Mandalorian is a man of honor, right? Mm-hmm. So at that point, he ultimately does decide to listen to his conscience and go and rescue Baby Yoda. Another good scene, I have no problem saying, like, I like the whole Mandalorian versus the Guild and how it kind of ended up, but oh boy, when the cavalry shows up, that's even better.
All the other Mandalorians are like, okay, we're here to fight.
Yep, we're here to fight. We're done. Far more armed than the rest of you. We have a bunch more tricks than you. I mean, it was already pretty cool being able to see, because some of his Beskar goes towards giving him what are called whistling birds. And you get to see those whistling birds in action when he takes out the stormtroopers. But now you get to see some of the other things that they have involved, like jetpacks and ginormous beam Gatling guns. And holy shit, the Batcave got emptied on this one, and it is just destroying the Guild, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the second that cavalry comes in, it's just like, wow, we are not dealing with the Mandalorians that we dealt with in the past. Because, you know, when you think back to Clone Wars and Death Watch and all that, where they were also having their unsavory purposes, right?
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't be doing something like this. And the very people that were questioning his judgment in who his client was and all that, they're the ones coming to save him. Almost like they're all a big family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they're all a coven. And even he's concerned about them. He's like, but what will the coven have to do? They're like, well, obviously we'll have to settle off-world. But you should get off-world now. Don't worry about us. We'll take care of ourselves, kind of thing. So I really like that. Any other scenes that you want to point out?
I still love the whole thing when Mando's like driving his ship and little Baby Yoda wanting to take the little ball,
and then eventually he gets given it.
Yeah.
Like, the Baby Yoda is because Baby Yoda during all of this is heavily drugged, and so by the time he wakes up and he's in the ship, Mando just kind of beats him to the punch, unscrews the little knob, lets him play with it, and then Baby Yoda ate it an hour later. I don't know. I'm only guessing.
He was, and you see the little hand reaching for it. Because he's like, ooh, shiny little round thing.
Something tells me that a lot of these episode descriptions, like, your favorite moment are going to be when Baby Yoda does anything.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's almost like you're a woman. Aww, you know? And there's nothing wrong with that. Also, I have no problem saying the last line of the episode is really good, which is, I gotta get me one of those. And he's referring to the jetpacks.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, way back in episode 1 where I talked about, yeah, he has a jetpack. No, he doesn't. He hasn't earned one yet. And so I like the fact that they actually kind of establish this is him still being a young pup. He doesn't have a jetpack yet. They haven't built one yet for him yet. And so he's like, I gotta get me one of those. I like that. What did this episode do wrong?
I think there was very little, really, because...
Do you feel maybe he... Because you're pro Baby Yoda at this point, right? Do you feel like it took too long for his conscience to kick in, or?
No, I think it was.
I think so too. I think it was the right amount.
Because he dropped off his cargo, he got what he needed, getting ready to do his next job, and then he's like, was it really necessarily to... He starts questioning.
Yeah, because he asked the question, what are they going to do to the kid?
Because, I mean, he never expected to see a little child.
And I've actually seen people make this argument, like, why does he care about the kid? The episode tells you. When his armor is being forged, we're seeing him being orphaned. Because we're guessing, like, the little boy in the memories or visions is him.
Mm-hmm.
And so his parents are putting him into a bunker and probably going to get shot. But they wanted to protect him, right? There's your reason.
Mm-hmm.
He was an orphan. He knows what it's like to be an orphan. So for all the people like, he didn't even have a reason to go do it. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. The series painted that out. Because you got those visions, although less clear, in the first episode when he got the pauldron. But now that he's getting the full set of armor, he has more time. They made the visions and memory, and I'm assuming memories, clear. Okay, he got put into a bunker, so he would be safe. Which pretty much tells me that the parents weren't safe. And they probably died. And then he got orphaned, and he had to go live on his own.
Well, I think he even when after he turned in his cargo, per se,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like being offered his reward for it, he kind of seemed like he's kind of hesitant on like what are the reasons for wanting the kid in the first place. But then he kind of goes on his way, just like, okay, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like you kind of see like he's kind of second guessing whether that was the right decision. And so
and aptly enough, for all the people that want to show me that I hate women directors and everything like that because of my viewpoint on Wonder Woman 84, do you want to know, hey motherfuckers, do you want to know who directed this? A woman. And this is one of my favorite episodes in the first season of Mandalorian. Because the director is Deborah Cho in this.
Mm.
Deborah Cho did a great fucking job. So for all the people who are like, you're just a woman hater. Yeah, totally. Yeah, let me tell you. I'm such a woman hater that I liked how she did this. Such a woman hater, right, Andrea? So, okay. So other things that this episode might have done wrong.
Like I said, I don't think there was too many things.
There really isn't too much. Maybe a little too much. Like if I'm nitpicking, maybe a little too much emphasis on that first round with Greef Karga, where like basically Mando goes into like he's already doing kind of a gunfight with some of these bounty hunters, and then basically lands himself into a pincer situation. He ends up in the what is it, a speeder, and he's still cornered.
Oh yeah.
So like he took his situation and made it worse. I can see where people might have a problem with that. It's a little drawn out, but I like it. Because ultimately what Mandalorian is supposed to be is like making Star Wars into a Western, ultimately. And this is stuff that would happen in a Western. So I'm okay with it. But I mean, like with you, was that too long before the cavalry came in? I think it's like the right amount. Maybe a little too long, but
Well, I think it's just one of the point where he's thought, you know, all hope is now becoming lost because there's no way to get out of the situation he's already in until luckily.
Or you could have been a butthole like I was when I first watched this episode and went, use your jetpack! Oh wait, you don't have one. I actually did make that complaint when I first watched it, and then he said, I gotta get me one of those. I'm like, and then I went back and looked, oh god, he doesn't have a jetpack! That's why he didn't use it!
Mm-hmm.
Is he a true Mandalorian because he doesn't have a jetpack?
But you just gotta love it that he's like the guy who issues out the pogs or whatever they are. Like,
the fobs, the tracking fobs.
Not the,
oh no, you're talking about the target. Yeah, the little, and they actually do call them pogs. I think
he's like, you know, telling you know Mando, just back over the baby, you know, over the cargo, and we'll let you live, or you know, or what you call it. It's like, Why are you guys all so wanting to take back the,
I almost kind of wanted, like, as a little asshole moment of The Mandalorian, for him to take the tracking pog that he had and give it back to Grief Karga as he's walking by after the reinforcements come in. Because remember, he confronts him in the shuttle, right? And then gets kicked off. Man, it would have been funny going, oh yeah, by the way, you're going to need this. And he gives the other tracking pog back. That would have been great. Okay, so we've gone over the best, we've gone over the worst. Before we give our final verdict on the sin, here's some interesting trivia for this episode. So Paz Vizsla, which is the bigger Mandalorian that fights with Mando, is actually voiced by Jon Favreau.
Really?
Who is the series runner. So that's kind of cool, right? Mm. You know who Jon Favreau is, right?
Kind of, yeah.
He's Happy from the Iron Man movies.
Mm.
So that's his director cameo.
Mm.
So he voiced Favreau also voiced Pre Vizsla, the leader of the Mandalorian terror group Death Watch in the Clone Wars series. I actually didn't know that.
Oh.
One of Grief Karga's hired men is a Zabrak, the same species as Darth Maul. Did you notice that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I saw him with the spikes on his head.
Oh.
So this is the first alien species from the prequel trilogy to appear in the series. So, Deborah Chow is the first woman to direct a Star Wars project. Her work on the episode so impressed everybody that she was asked to helm the upcoming Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan Kenobi series, which I've heard didn't go very well. Okay, so we just barely read about Deborah Chow. So, the droid that answers the door for the client is the same type of droid that answers the door to Jabba's palace. In case you guys didn't know that. Let's see. The astromech driving the speeder is part of the R6 series. This version was originally developed for the expanded universe and made its on-screen debut in Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. So there you go. Oh, and the Mandalorian receives his reward in a Camtono, which is the same shape as the infamous ice cream maker carried by Wilro Hood on Cloud City in Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that was actually its name. It's called a Camtono. In what I mean is, it's called that in lore. Paz Vizsla calls the Mandalorian a coward. This is one of the worst insults in the Mandalorian language, Mandoa, where one would say Hatun.
Mm.
So he's calling him a coward, ultimately. Let's see. So this chapter was shot concurrently with The Mandalorian Chapter 1, as the stories share much of the same cast and sets. So this occasionally happens in TV, where if same assets are being utilized, multiple episodes are being shot, kind of thing. So probably because it's all on the same planet and all that. So there you go. So that's some interesting factoids about this episode. I especially liked about Jon Favreau. I didn't even know he voiced Pre Vizsla in Clone Wars. That's actually pretty cool. So with that being said, we've gone over what was right. We've gone over what was wrong. Andrea, out of 5, what would you give The Sin?
I'd probably give it a 4, maybe.
Okay. 5. 5, because this is actually... So, Episode 1 is really good in the fact that it's setting up what you're looking forward to in this series, in this part of the universe, like post Return of the Jedi. This is how the world works now. Episode 3 sets up what this series is going to be about now. So, in particular, the fact that the Mandalorian is going to be on the run from the underworld in order to save Baby Yoda and give him a proper home, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a really great setup for that. It also showcases this Mandalorian is not Boba Fett. He is probably as skilled as Boba Fett, as we saw in the fight with Paz Vizsla in the Coven. He is as skilled, but he is not the same cold-hearted bastard as we all know Boba Fett to be, right?
True.
So I like it. I think despite its flaws, it all works together, and it is able to do a proper setup for this series. And frankly, given that episode 2, like, this actually makes episode 2 not that bad by comparison, because now you see the ties to episode 2. And so it actually helps bring up episode 2 in that regard. So, like, the child isn't that bad when you have this context complementing it. So I'll give it a 5. So you're giving it a 4. I'm giving it a 5. Why didn't it deserve a 5 for you?
I don't know. Just, I suppose. I really don't know, to be honest.
So you're giving it a B, but don't really know why, is what you're saying. I recommend you up your vote to 5. No, I'm kidding.
I would have to think on that one.
Okay, so are you gonna stick to your score, or just stick to your score? I'm not pressuring anything. I promise. So okay, so you got a 4 out of 5. I've got a 5 out of 5 for The Sin, and that's gonna go ahead and do it for this episode of The Mandalorian. So when we come back, we will officially hit the halfway point of the first season with episode 4. Thank you guys so much for your continued love and support. We really do appreciate it. If you want to be able to continue to show your support, and you are not subscribed to the RSS feed, which is geekynro.libsyn.com, go do that. But you can also subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcast, Spotify, and Player.fm. If you want to go the extra mile on those, leave us a like and a review on those platforms. It really actually does help with searchability and all that stuff. And for those buttheads that just want to stay on YouTube, I love you buttheads, but you're being buttheads. You guys will get this episode obviously a week later, and you guys can enjoy it then. But if you want to be able to get first access to see what we thought about what happened in the next episode, that is to support the podcast itself. So thank you guys so much for your continued support. We do actually love and appreciate you. And if you are one of those YouTube buttheads, consider giving us a subscribe on that channel to be able to get notified when those episodes become available. And we will be back next time for episode 4 of 8 of The Mandalorian Season 1. Until then, take care, everybody. Stay safe. And remember, this is the way.
This is the way.